Hello everyone, welcome to this video. I'm very excited to tell you about something that I consider the most important thing that I've ever learned about my mind and myself, and I'm hoping for that this is exciting to you too. I'm talking about these ideas not just to tell you about what are the great things that I learned, but in order to figure it out myself. So if you notice in this presentation anything that doesn't make sense to you, please let me know. Write a comment below or contact me on Skype for a one-on-one conversation. Growing up, we all try to make sense of the world, try to find meaning. And this is my contribution to offer an alternative to all the different ways that we learned to make sense of the world. Culture is saturated with right and wrong thinking and a huge sense of separation, and a lot of suffering comes with it. I think it is possible to overcome all of this by looking at our self in a different way. Really trying to find yourself means you can stop looking on the outside all around you and in all the wrong places. And you will be able to let go of trying to change other people. If that sounds like giving up to you, then hold on a second, because there's a whole lot of things you can do. And this is how it goes. Let me ask you a few questions first. How do you define your personality? Is it a single thing? Maybe you have done personality tests before, but what does that mean? How does it help? And are you stuck with that personality type for the rest of your life? What if you don't like aspects of it? Who actually runs your life? Is it you? Is it your parents? Your teachers? The government? Secret societies? Who runs your life? As much as you will ever learn about culture and politics, what can you actually do about it? Not much, really. Nothing compared to what you can do with self-knowledge. You can influence and change the secret society inside your head because it's yours. Take ownership of it all the way. The more information you have about how your mind works, the clearer the image of reality becomes. It is much less likely that you will be chasing after illusions, heading off the completely wrong direction, or even endangering your well-being if you know what's actually happening right in front of you, correct? So would you want all the information you can get, even if it means it might be uncomfortable? Are you still with me? By developing a healthy relationship with yourself, you will unlock more compassion and the ability to love yourself, and then also to love others, no matter how dark and scary the things you will face are. Uncovering unconscious processes also, of course, offers more choice for efficient self-leadership. You will be more easily be able to keep track of and break through repetitive patterns and addictions, creating inner peace, clarity, and a new sense of direction. You will discover previously hidden superpowers by realizing that you can change your beliefs at any time, liberating your mind to do what you really want to do, aligning with your deepest purpose that was always hidden inside of you. A little warning before we continue. In this video, I'm going to talk about concepts of subpersonalities and emotions and needs. These are words intended to create a map of reality, and I would like to emphasize here that the map is not the territory. Even though it can be very helpful to use our imagination to understand our subpersonalities, that doesn't mean that there is actual little people living inside of our head like gnomes or something. What I'm attempting to describe here is far more complex than could ever be communicated. But I found it very useful to use this simplified map to better navigate my mind and my life. And I hope you will discover that too. It is 2018, and as far as I know, there is only 2 research studies available on this topic. So I rely mostly on my own experiences, as well as the reports of many other people about the effectiveness in working with the method I'm about to describe. I put the link to the study findings in the description below, but you can also watch this video here where I am demonstrating how I am using the method. Also, please be aware that this is my personal take on what I have learned and how I was able to heal many aspects of my subpersonality system. If you want to hear more from the professionals, I suggest you check out these resources. I also put them in the description below. I also want to mention that using this method by yourself is not a substitute for psychotherapy. For some, past traumatic experience resulted in a very sensitive, reactive, chaotic, unstable, or strongly conflicted internal family system. So, overwhelming emotions might be triggered and might require the guidance of an experienced IFS therapist. If what you're feeling is so overwhelming to you that you cannot guide yourself through the process of mourning and acceptance, just like when you were a child and you would have needed the help of an adult to help you to learn how to feel intense emotions, a therapist or a coach can help you with what seems impossible at first, so that you can gain the competence and the confidence to be able to face these things on your own. Alright, let's go into a little bit of history. In the year 400 AD, the Roman Christian poet Prudentius wrote a work that's called Psychomachia, in which he was describing 7 human virtues and vices, which are subpersonalities, and the battle between them, which is internal conflicts. Socrates also wrote that his inner life was controlled by what he called daimons. In ancient times, subpersonalities were often attributed to outside forces, taking over the human mind by possession. Sometimes in the form of gods, ancestors, or nature spirits that were even invited in some kind of ritual form to possess a human vessel. But sometimes also involuntary, like in the classic demonic possession or the devil. So, let's get finally to the definition. What are subpersonalities? First claim is every normal, healthy human being has subpersonalities. Personality is comprised out of many parts. Just think of it as a number of people inside your mind. Each one, just like people, has its own view of the world, may or may not like the other parts, may team up with some, may fight with others, or ignore them. There are lots of dynamics inside of your head, just like in a community of people. They behave just like people. They form alliances, they have moods, and they have a unique purpose or job, strengths and weaknesses. You can view them like a team of superheroes, trying to save you on a daily basis. What you call I is a composite of all of these parts, fluid and dynamic. Without awareness of them, it's hard to distinguish them from each other. That's why you didn't really know about them. Each part has a unique talent, like the member of a sports team or an orchestra. And this is very important. They are all meaning well. There is no evil subself, even if it's very destructive and critical. Some of them have very unhealthy habits, like smoking, overeating, being shy, depression, but they can also be very powerful and dedicated. And so you might say, if they are all talented and well-intentioned, why are there even any problems with it? Well, just like in groups of people, as you might have experienced, it's very difficult to form a team with a bunch of egos. Everyone absolutely convinced that only their solution makes sense, and everyone else is stupid. Parts always want to help. Often they never really learned how to communicate or to cooperate. Their strategies don't seem to be making practical sense. Some of them are very destructive. And also some of them live in the past. How come, and what does that mean? Does something like this happen to you? How does it usually show up for you? Are you troubled by emotions that don't seem to make sense? Do you sometimes feel torn between two different strategies or important life decisions? Do you sometimes label thoughts as irrational, criticizing them in yourself or in others? Fighting or resisting them? Many psychological and some physical discomforts, like head or stomach aches, muscle tics or spasms, a tight throat, stomach or shoulders, tingling, numbness, coolness, flushing, etc., may be caused by subpersonalities fighting against each other. Do you argue with yourself? Do you hate someone you love? Did you ever, when about to go out onto an event, have a voice inside your head thinking, come on, stay home, you need rest? Or do you ever want to really eat a very tasty treat, even though a voice in your head is thinking, you shouldn't do that? At this point, let's pause for a little bit and reflect for a moment. How do these ideas feel so far? Maybe they differ from your prior beliefs about personalities. Skepticism, scorn, or cynicism are usually caused by scared subpersonalities defending against new information and possible change. They might be afraid of the unknown. Watch out for those parts that want to avoid a topic that they know will raise long forgotten, very uncomfortable or painful emotions. Where do our subpersonalities come from? As the brain evolves growing up, it creates special sections evaluating sensory input to be able to filter out unnecessary information, because there's a lot of information, and also to be able to focus on what's most important to fulfill our survival needs, and also what is the most dangerous and needs to be avoided. Many repetitions or extreme single traumatic events then form a pattern or a habit to adapt to whatever the environment is. Habits are perfectly useful to automate processes, to make room in our consciousness for what still is new and needs to be evaluated. Subpersonalities are programmed in early childhood to take over tasks for you while you're doing or thinking something completely different. Emotions are the main hotline in your system to guide you to what seems to be the most relevant. This is why they are so fast and kind of unspecific. For example, intense fear tells you about a tiny spider in front of your face just as much as about a bus that's about to hit you. Some of the code for these programs is coming from our genetic information, for example, like fear of snakes or heights or something like this. Others are created by observing the subpersonalities of adults around us act, and some of them are just completely new creations. So what's a traumatic event and what happens? If a part of a child's mind is experiencing something that's so deeply confusing or accompanied by intolerable feelings, an emergency response kicks in to dissociate from what is happening and to store the information that cannot be processed right now in some kind of hidden spot to be recovered at a later point when the brain is ready to handle that situation and to resolve it. Trauma is very often caused by the strategies of the parents' subpersonalities without awareness or self-leadership, and get then emulated and transmitted from generation to generation. Some parts are simply inherited by the natural tendency of children to imitate their parents' behavior. Others are unique creations of the child to explain a very confusing or disconnecting experience with the parent. All the parts involved, the parents and the child's, they're all trying to help to protect their system from pain, but unfortunately creating more pain as a result. We can distinguish between three types of subpersonalities. There is the inner children, of course. These are exiled or abandoned identities of children in the past that could not process some kind of information. They are stuck in the past, usually by some kind of intense emotion that they did not allow themselves to feel, or by some kind of belief that they try to form in order to explain the situation. If it is referred to as the inner child, it is usually like a whole series of these parts, like a lot of children. There can be shamed children, they feel worthless, they feel guilty for something, they feel very scared of something, or abandoned, lost, and lonely. Some of them feel rageful and they were not allowed to feel angry. The second type of subpersonalities are the so-called guardians or firefighters. These parts were created in order to protect the inner children, to make sure that these intense emotions never rise to the surface ever again. They usually use short-term distractions like smoking, food, or sex, and they can react very fast. That's why they are called firefighters. They just quickly rush in to put out the fire of the intense emotion. And unfortunately, they can be very self-destructive, like in the form of an addiction. The third category are the so-called managers. These are parts that are maybe a little bit older, and they have a little bit more of a long-term perspective, but at the same time the intention to keep the exiles where they are, to not be able to feel stuff again. So that, for example, might be if you grew up very poor and that was like very disorienting or confusing or dangerous, you might develop a manager part when you're older that makes sure that you always have enough money. But it could be out of balance at the cost of your health or your relationships. Yeah, and here are some examples of different kinds of managers or firefighters that a lot of people share. So there is the inner critic that almost everybody has. An inner critic jumps in if an inner child starts to feel unlovable because it maybe did something wrong or things like this. And it tries to help you by criticizing you before other people can, so that you keep being loved. It can be very harsh, but its intention is to help you to prevent mistakes, which might cause disconnection like it happened in the past. The perfectionist is another version of the critic, only trying to push you harder to, be loved more. Now, this is a very tricky part. The magician is trying to keep uncomfortable truths from you. Maybe an inner child feels really ashamed or afraid for what it did or for lying itself. So the magician can make you believe that certain things never happened. In this tragic way, we can keep lying to ourselves for a long time. Some inner children learned growing up that in order to feel safe, they needed to make sure that their parents are always happy. And they keep doing this with other people as you're an adult, in your marriage or in your job, always prioritizing and scanning other people over your own needs so that your inner child doesn't feel unsafe again. A procrastinator can have many reasons to keep you from doing what other parts of you are telling you you should do. But I guess you can already see the pattern here. Did you enjoy cleaning your room as a child, or was this rather a disconnecting experience? The most famous firefighters are those that get you in or are keeping you in an addiction. These parts suggest a multiplicity of different things that you could do using all kinds of persuasive or seductive words or memories, just so that you can remain feeling good a little bit. Can you see the kind intention there again? Especially when there is discomfort bubbling to the surface in a very difficult situation. They can be so fast in jumping in to help you not feel something that you don't even realize what's going on until you wake up later and then the inner critic kicks in. The amazing thing is that all these parts function without you ever needing to be aware of them. They're automated. So the question then becomes, who is leading them? Who is making your life decisions? Without awareness or true self-leadership, it remains a constant struggle between all these parts that want to take control of you in order to make the decisions. With a chaotic subpersonality system, communication with another person and their own chaotic system becomes a huge challenge. If people interact, crowds of parts are interacting. Even if you're never able to figure out another person, it helps immensely if your own village inside your mind is organized so that you can at least transmit a coherent message to the outer town. Can your subpersonalities change? Yes, they can. In fact, improving your own parts is the one thing that you have the most control over in life, because it's closer to you than anything else in the world. It's inside of you. Just like when you're working out to train to grow your own biceps, right? Like another part of you. Results can show up within a reasonable amount of time if you work on it, compared to if you would try to change the biceps of some other person. Is there any danger if I'm messing around with my own brain, you may ask? No, there isn't. You can't suddenly unlock horrible parts of you and then become a serial killer or something. It can feel intense, very uncomfortable feelings that you've never felt before or forgot about. And you might need some support from a friend, a partner, or a therapist, but you will survive. You cannot break your mind or become insane. So, what needs to be done? Each subpersonality needs to be seen, recognized for its role, appreciated for its help, and respectfully communicated with. If you or someone else approaches them with any kind of agenda of wanting to get rid of them or something, they will not be available. They also need to feel secure, important, and useful. Many people as young children ever felt recognized, valued, seen, or safe. Over time, these long unfulfilled needs can be fulfilled for your parts by yourself, not by anyone else. Our parts can be in extreme roles. They can be paralyzed, exhausted, hysterical, repressed, or overwhelmed. They cannot be killed or deleted because they are areas of our brains. But they do know about the process of exiling. Just like the inner children, they can be suppressed so much that they seem to cease to exist, but they're still there. This is why when you first work on your system, some parts might not trust this process, in fear of losing their job, being banished or exiled, just like the other parts. But if they are approached with understanding and care, they can grow up and they can learn to fulfill a new role or improving the strategies for their old roles. For example, a harsh inner critic can learn that what it is doing is not really helping and can transform into a motivational coach instead. The more subpersonalities feel safe and valued, the more they reveal themselves to us over time. They will communicate with you, they can learn, and they can communicate with each other. As with physical people with common interests, this ability to communicate allows trust building, mediation, and conciliation. What is blending? Blending is a term coined by psychologist Dick Schwartz to describe an excited subpersonality trying to take over your consciousness, or the observer or your true self, with its own thoughts, feelings, views, and needs. When blending happens, you experience the world from the part's perspective, what it feels or thinks or believes. This way it can happen that your spouse suddenly turns into an enemy and whatever he or she says becomes life-threatening. It requires training to notice when blending is happening and how it is feeling, and a regular workout in order to develop the muscle to be able to unblend more efficiently. Practicing to blend with a part and feel all it feels, and then to zoom out again and look at it from a true self perspective is one of the most important skills that can ever be learned. Parts often feel burdened by tasks they don't even enjoy, or they cost extra energy, especially if there's other parts that sabotage them or fight it or criticize them. Because these programs often are about survival, they can be so sensitive that they keep you from ever having peace of mind or equanimity. They are like smoke detectors that sound a shrilling alarm every time somebody's walking by your house with a cigarette. You wouldn't want to remove the fire detector completely. You still want to know about if there's a fire, but you would want to tune its sensitivity so that it's helping you to have peace of mind rather than causing a constant headache. What is true self? True self is a concept that can help you in different ways. If you're more spiritually inclined, you will find it is a natural leader that lives inside all of us. If uncovered and connected with, it can guide you and all your parts through life. It can also be compared to experiencing what is called higher self or source or God. But I don't think it's ever useful to consider it as outside of you. If you're a more logical personality type, you can consider the true self as another program that's running in your mind and connecting all the parts, never attached to a specific outcome or a strategy or survival even. That's why it can be always loving. The importance of it is that by accessing your true self, you will be able to connect to every other of your subpersonalities with understanding and care and love. And by addressing their fears and beliefs from this perspective, you will be able to alleviate their burdens over time and help them transform their roles into more efficient ones. Part of the practice is to check if when talking to another subpersonality, you feel calm, compassionate, curious, and loving. If there is any other emotion alive, it's probably coming from another subpersonality and not from your true self. Based on my own mistakes, I can also warn you here of the term false self. Subpersonalities learn everything that you learn, and they love to pretend that they are true self. It's a very sneaky blending technique of them. They label other parts or other people as false self. As soon as you notice this within yourself, it's a good indicator that it's actually a subpersonality talking. When starting out to practice, the true self is usually buried under a lot of subpersonalities that want to keep you safe and free of pain. But it is a feature of every person's mind, and it can be uncovered step by step, part by part. Mankind has developed a lot of archetypes of the true self, so that everybody can understand what Buddha or Jesus would say or do. Sometimes the use of psychedelics can also facilitate a more integrated understanding or a knowing of this concept. After a while, the integration of all your subpersonalities enables the ability to include all other humans into your external family. And you can see them just like your parts for their positive intention, helping them heal, to finally be able to live together in peace and achieve great things together. Because of past conditioning, parts don't trust each other or the true self. They often want to take over and blend so that their own preferred survival strategy trumps everyone else's. Usually we don't recognize a part taking over. It can be just a slight shift in mood, a new emotion, a sensation or a pain in the body. If it is very challenging for you to really speak from the heart and to be open to sometimes extreme opinions of your subpersonalities, then I recommend that you look into nonviolent communication. With some practice, you will be able to see the benevolent intention even behind the most horrendous strategies, and you can have compassion for how sometimes these parts desperately are trying to fulfill their needs, your needs.
So, how does this process actually look like? You start by identifying a subpersonality, by localizing it as a sensation within your body or visualizing it. If you find it hard to identify single thoughts, or you experience your mind as this thick fog that blanks out everything, then I recommend that you look into meditation. I'm sure you will find a lot of good videos about that if you don't practice it already. Meditation helps you to shape your unblending muscle in your mind. You will be able to create a peaceful space within that can then be used to hold space for a subpersonality. Emptying your mind can be misunderstood by your parts as that you want to just get rid of them. So it's important to acknowledge all of them and show gratitude before letting them go for now. All of these parts are trying to help you, so don't push them away or judge them. You can let every part know that they will be heard soon, but in order to have focused attention, all the different voices and pictures in your head need to quiet down first.
Just like a group of screaming children, they will learn that they get their needs more met if they agree to letting one speak after the other. If you feel somewhat clearer, you can start identifying those parts of you that are the loudest in this moment. Sometimes that's easy because you're already stimulated about something. Other times it's necessary to remember a recent event where you were triggered, a so-called trailhead. Give all your subpersonalities names and images. Get to know them with compassion. Hear them out. Really listen to what they have to say, either by letting them speak out loud through you or by writing it down like a movie script. You can use a therapist that's trained in the internal family systems therapy method until you're skilled enough to do it by yourself. I also recommend highly to check out these books here to learn about the method and the practice. Alright, I want to give you a quick overview of the process, but I recommend that you check out my channel because I have videos where I share actual recorded therapy sessions that demonstrate much clearer how it actually works. Number 1, just like mentioned, get to know a protector part. If it's not active right now, remember how this felt like when you were last triggered. Number 2, unblend from it to speak to it rather than from its perspective. Ask them if ready to step aside so that you can talk through the inner child. Develop a trusting relationship with the protector and the exile. If they trust you, witness the origins of the trauma. Usually that goes back to childhood, but it could just as well be a trauma like a car accident. Reparent the exile. That means you create a safe environment where you can listen to the hurt part with compassion, sending it love and understanding. Unburdening means you name the beliefs that the inner child holds, and in an imagined ritual, you set those beliefs free, enabling the child to grow up and to recognize that you're an adult now. And the last step is to transform the protector. As the protector witnesses the liberation of the exile, it can also transform into a new and much more efficient role. I personally had a hard time starting out with this practice, not only because I was struggling financially, but also with trusting other people. Luckily, I'm a game developer, and so I developed an app for myself that simulates the method on my laptop or on the phone. I had doubts if that was really effective at first, but right after the first session I knew that that was working for me. If you're curious about this app, check out this video here. I also put a link to the software in the description below. The prototype is free. Try it out, give me some feedback. At the moment it's only available for PC, but I would like to make this available for more people and for more platforms. You can also check out this video here where I am breaking down one of my recorded sessions where I'm demonstrating how this process actually works step by step. Thank you so much for watching this entire video. Please consider liking it so that other people find this content too. Subscribing if you want to know about new content. I would love it if you would be able to support me on Patreon so that I can produce even more content like this. I'm very excited about this. Thanks again for your time. Take care and have a great day.